Hide my sister. Midnight knock at Hell's Angels' door. 98 bikers took a stand. The knock came at 12. 3 a.m., 3 small hits against a steel door that had seen fights, parties, and police raids, but never this. When the door opened, a boy stood there shaking, holding a baby and whispering 5 words. Hide my sister, please, tonight. The rain was coming down sideways. Inside the Hells Angels Iron Ridge Clubhouse in rural Pennsylvania, 14 men sat around a scarred wooden table covered in coffee cups and empty beer bottles. The air smelled like oil, smoke, and old leather. They had been planning their winter charity ride, arguing about routes, permits, and who would handle security. Then the knock came, not loud, not bold, 3 soft taps. Ridge Lawson, chapter president, 47 years old, former Army mechanic, beard streaked with gray, froze mid-sentence. He held up one hand. Silence swallowed the room. Everyone heard it. Another 3 taps. Not the knock of a drunk, not the knock of a cop, the knock of someone afraid. I'll get it, said Mason Grave Turner, the sergeant-at-arms, 6'3", shoulders like a refrigerator, tattoos crawling up his neck, a face that usually made grown men step aside without a word. He walked to the steel door, pulled it open, and the world shifted. A boy stood in the rain, maybe 11, brown hair stuck to his forehead, a split lip, blood mixed with rainwater down his chin. His hoodie was 2 sizes too big and soaked through. In his arms, wrapped in a damp pink blanket, was a baby girl. She wasn't crying. That was the worst part. She just blinked slowly, too tired to fuss. The boy looked up at Grave. His teeth were chattering so hard they clicked, but his voice didn't shake when he spoke. Hide my sister, he said. He's going to kill her tonight. Grave felt something in his chest drop. Behind him, Ridge appeared. 14 bikers now stood in silence, watching this child in the storm. Who's going to kill her? Ridge asked quietly. My dad, the boy whispered. He just got out. Lightning split the sky behind him. The baby stirred weakly. Grave stepped aside. Get inside, Ridge said. Now. And with that, without knowing it yet, 98 bikers across 5 states were about to take a stand. Water pooled on the concrete floor as the boy stepped inside. The clubhouse heater hummed, but he was still shaking. He didn't let go of the baby, not for a second. What's your name? Ridge asked, kneeling so he was eye level. Evan, he said. Evan Cole. She's Mia. How old is she? 14 months. Grave grabbed dry towels. Another biker, Hank Copper Mills, turned the heat higher. Someone else brought a chair. But Evan didn't sit. He scanned the room like a soldier in enemy territory. Leather vests, patches, hard faces. He swallowed. You're not bad guys, he said quickly. You did the bike giveaway at the shelter last summer. You fixed my friend Tyler's bicycle. Ridge blinked. That had been months ago. You remember that? Ridge asked. Evan nodded. You said if we ever needed help, we could come here. The room went still. Grave carefully reached for Mia. Let me warm her up, he said, softer than anyone had ever heard him speak. Evan hesitated, then slowly handed her over. Grave wrapped the baby in a thick flannel blanket and held her against his chest. The baby let out a small sigh and pressed her cheek into the leather vest. Something in Grave's eyes changed. When did he get out? Ridge asked. Today, Evan said, this afternoon. And he's already threatening you. Evan nodded. He was smiling when he came to get us. But when the social worker left, he grabbed Mia by the arm and said he should have finished it before. The words landed heavy. What does that mean? Copper asked. Evan's jaw tightened. He tried once before, when she was 5 months old. He threw her against the wall. The baby stirred in Grave's arms. He went to prison for it, Evan said, but the judge let him out early. Why didn't you call the police? Someone asked. Evan's eyes went hollow. His cousin is the police. No one spoke after that. Ridge stood slowly. What's your dad's name? Travis Cole. Ridge's jaw flexed. He knew that name. And suddenly, this wasn't just about one violent father. It was about something bigger and dirtier. Travis Cole wasn't just some angry drunk. He used to ride with Iron Ridge. Years ago, before prison, before the assault charge, before he'd been kicked out. He was probationary, Grave muttered, never made full patch. Ridge nodded slowly. He had temper issues. That's a polite way to say it, Copper said. Evan looked between them. You know him. Silent. Ridge crouched again. We knew him a long time ago, he said carefully. He's not one of us. He says you owe him, Evan whispered. The words hit like a punch. Owe him what? Grave asked. Evan's fingers curled into fists. He said if you hadn't testified at the hearing, he wouldn't have gone to prison so long. 14 men stiffened. Ridge felt his stomach tighten. He had testified 2 years ago. He told the court Travis was violent, unstable, dangerous. He thought he was protecting a baby. Instead, Travis blamed him. He said tonight he was going to take something from you, Evan continued, starting with her. The baby whimpered softly in Grave's arms. Grave rocked her instinctively. Ridge stood. Every man in the room felt it now. This wasn't random. This was revenge. And how did you get away? Ridge asked. He went to meet someone, Evan said. He thought I was asleep. I took Mia and ran. But how far? 4 miles. In the rain, carrying a baby with a split lip. Ridge looked at his brothers. The same thought sat on every face. This kid had walked into a storm because he believed bikers would protect him. That belief could not be broken. Ridge reached for his phone. He dialed one number, then another, then another. Across state lines, engines would soon wake, because if Travis Cole thought he could threaten a child to settle an old score, he had forgotten who he was dealing with and what they stood for. By 1:12 a.m., the calls had spread beyond county lines. Ridge stood near the bar, phone pressed to his ear, voice low and steady. Yeah, it's real, kid and a baby, Travis Cole. Pause. No, not rumor. He's already made a move. But another pause. Yeah, I testified. He hung up and dialed again. Across Ohio, West Virginia, and upstate New York, phones began to buzz on nightstands. Men rolled out of bed. Boots hit floors. Engines coughed to life in dark garages. Back inside Iron Ridge, Evan finally sat down. Grave handed him a mug of hot chocolate. His massive hands dwarfed the cup. Slow, Grave said gently. You'll burn your tongue. Evan nodded. He didn't drink yet. He watched Mia first. She was asleep now against Grave's chest, tiny fingers gripping the edge of a leather vest stitched with flames and skulls. The contrast was almost holy. Ridge came back to the table. Travis is staying at his cousin's place, Copper reported, tapping on his laptop. Property outside town. No cameras registered. Of course not, Grave muttered. And the cousin? Ridge asked. Deputy Mark Cole, county sheriff's office. Evan flinched at the word sheriff. He came to the house once, Evan said quietly. He told my dad nobody would ever take us away again. The room thickened. This wasn't just a violent father. This was protection from the inside. We can't call local, Copper said. No, Ridge agreed. We go state. He dialed an old contact, a retired federal agent who owed him a favor from a veterans fundraiser years back. While he spoke, Evan finally took a sip of the drink. His hands still shook. You're not sending us back, right? He asked suddenly. Every head turned. Ridge ended the call and walked over. He crouched again, face level, eyes steady. Listen to me carefully, he said. No one is taking you anywhere tonight. You and Mia are safe here. Evan searched his face for doubt. There was none. Outside, thunder rolled. Inside, 14 bikers made a silent decision. Travis Cole had declared war. And by sunrise, he was going to realize he had chosen the wrong enemy. At 2:03 a.m., the first headlights appeared at the end of the gravel road. Then another. Then 3 more. Engines rumbled like distant thunder. Evan stood by the window, heart racing. Are those more of you? He asked. Grave smirked slightly. Yeah, kid, those are more of us. Within 30 minutes, the parking lot filled. Leather jackets stepped through the door in waves, some gray-haired, some barely 30, all wearing the same patch. No shouting, no chaos, just quiet understanding. Ridge gathered them near the table. Travis Cole, he began, came after these kids tonight, threatened the baby, blames us for his prison time. Low murmurs rippled. He won't touch them, someone said. He won't breathe near them, another growled. Ridge raised a hand. This isn't about revenge. It's about protection. We do this clean. Grave adjusted Mia in his arms. She stirred and blinked at the new faces. One older biker with a snow-white beard made a funny face at her. To everyone's surprise, she smiled. The room softened instantly. Evan watched them. 98 men now filled the clubhouse, and not one of them looked away from his sister. Kid, said a tall rider named Boone, kneeling beside him. You did the hardest part. You got her here. Evan swallowed. I was scared, he admitted. Good, Boone said gently. Being scared means you care. Outside, more engines arrived. By 3:00 a.m., the entire Iron Ridge network was present. Ridge stepped into the center. "Here's the plan," he said, and as he spoke, Evan realized something. His father might have power in the shadows, but these men, they stood in the open, and they were not afraid. The plan was simple, visible, legal, unbreakable. At 7:00 a.m., 98 motorcycles would escort Evan and Mia to the state courthouse. They would file emergency protection orders. They would request federal oversight due to local conflict of interest. They would stand peacefully until the paperwork was signed. "And if Travis shows," someone asked. Ridge's eyes hardened. "He won't get through." Morning came cold and gray. Evan hadn't slept. He sat at the edge of a worn leather couch while Grave helped Mia into a tiny pink jacket someone had found in the clubhouse's charity closet. "She looks like a marshmallow," Grave muttered, adjusting the hood. Evan almost smiled. Outside, engines roared to life in unison. The sound was overwhelming, not angry, protective. Ridge walked over and handed Evan a spare helmet, smaller than the rest. "You ride with me," Ridge said. Evan hesitated. "I've never been on a motorcycle." Ridge held his gaze. "Then today's a first." The convoy rolled out just after sunrise. 98 bikes, headlights cutting through mist. Traffic parted without question. People stared, some pulled out phones. At a red light, Evan looked around. All he could see were leather backs forming a wall. For the first time in months, he wasn't scanning for danger. He wasn't listening for shouting. He wasn't holding his breath. He leaned forward slightly and wrapped his small arms around Ridge's waist. Ridge felt it, didn't say a word, just tightened his grip on the handlebars. Ahead, the courthouse came into view, and across the parking lot, a black pickup truck with Travis Cole stepping out. To be continued. Travis looked thinner than Ridge remembered, but his eyes were the same, cold, calculating. He stared at the incoming line of motorcycles like he couldn't believe what he was seeing. 98 engines shut off in perfect sequence. Silence dropped like a curtain. Evan's breathing quickened. "That's him," he whispered. Ridge placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "I know." Travis took a few steps forward. "You think this is funny?" he shouted. "You think hiding my kids makes you heroes?" No one responded. Grave stepped forward with Mia in his arms. The baby looked at Travis, then buried her face into Grave's chest. The gesture was small, but devastating. Travis's jaw twitched. "They're mine," he barked. "Not today," Ridge said calmly. Deputy Mark Cole's cruiser pulled into the lot. For a split second, tension spiked, but behind him came 2 state troopers. Then another vehicle marked Federal Oversight Unit. Ridge's call from the night before had worked. Deputy Cole's confidence faltered. "What's this?" Travis snapped. "This," Ridge said evenly, "is accountability." The federal agent stepped forward with paperwork. "Mr. Cole, there are credible threats reported. You will not approach the miners pending investigation." Travis lunged a half step. 98 boots shifted at once. Not aggressive, just present. The sound alone stopped him. Evan clutched Ridge's jacket tighter. For the first time, Travis looked unsure. And in that moment, power changed hands. Inside the courthouse, the paperwork moved faster than expected. Federal oversight meant no local interference. By noon, temporary protection orders were signed. Custody was suspended pending review. Deputy Cole avoided eye contact. Travis paced like a trapped animal. "You think this is over?" he hissed as officers escorted him away. Ridge didn't answer. He didn't need to. Outside, cameras had gathered. News vans lined the street. A reporter approached Evan cautiously. "Why did you go to them?" she asked, nodding toward the bikers. Evan looked at Mia, then at the wall of leather behind him. "Because they keep their word," he said simply. The clip aired that night. Across social media, opinions flew, but something larger happened. Donations poured into child advocacy centers. Other chapters offered legal support. Families in similar situations reached out. One small knock had started something bigger. Back at the clubhouse that evening, the mood was quieter, not celebratory, relieved. Mia crawled across the wooden table while Grave followed her like a bodyguard. Evan sat beside Ridge. "Are we really safe?" he asked. "For now," Ridge said honestly, "and we'll keep it that way." Evan nodded. He looked older than 11, but lighter, like a weight had shifted. Outside, the sun dipped low. Engines rested. For the first time in months, no one was chasing them. 3 days later, the real twist surfaced. Financial records tied Travis and his cousin to illegal custody payouts. Judge Oversight was launched. Deputy Cole was suspended. The system that had seemed untouchable began to crack. Evan watched it unfold from a spare bedroom at Ridge's house. Yes, Ridge's house. Because when temporary foster placement was discussed, every biker volunteered, but the court needed stability, a registered home. Ridge and his wife, Clara, stepped forward. Clara knelt in front of Evan that first night. "You don't have to be brave here," she told him gently. "You can just be a kid." He didn't know how to respond to that. But when Mia toddled across the living room, laughing, he felt something warm in his chest. Not fear, not vigilance, something softer. Hope. One evening, as the sun set orange over the yard, Evan stood beside Ridge on the porch. "Why did you help us?" he asked quietly. Ridge took a long breath. "Because someone once helped me," he said, "and because no child should ever have to choose between fear and survival." Evan nodded slowly. He looked down the long gravel road where it had all begun. The storm was gone now, clear sky, quiet air. He squeezed Ridge's hand, and this time he wasn't shaking. A week passed. For the first time in a long time, mornings were quiet. No slammed doors, no shouting. No listening for footsteps outside a bedroom. Evan woke up in a real bed, sheets tucked tight, sunlight slipping through curtains Clara had chosen in soft blue. Mia slept in a crib beside him, her tiny chest rising and falling peacefully. He watched her for a long moment, still here, still safe. Downstairs, the smell of coffee and pancakes drifted up the hallway. It felt unreal. At breakfast, Ridge read over legal updates while Clara cut Mia's pancakes into small pieces. Evan kept glancing at the door every time a car passed. Ridge noticed. "He can't come near you," Ridge said gently. "The order stands." Evan nodded, but trauma doesn't leave just because paperwork says it should. Later that afternoon, a black SUV rolled slowly past the house. Evan froze. The fork slipped from his hand. Ridge saw it too. Without a word, he stepped onto the porch. Across the street, two bikes idled, Grave and Boone. They had been there every day since the courthouse. Visible, present, not hiding. The SUV didn't stop. It kept going. Ridge came back inside. "State investigators," he said calmly. "They're watching Travis." Evan's shoulders lowered slightly. That evening, Clara sat beside him on the couch while Mia played with plastic blocks. "Can I ask you something?" she said softly. Evan nodded. "When was the last time someone read you a bedtime story?" He stared at her. He genuinely couldn't remember. Clara smiled gently. "Well," she said, reaching for a worn children's book, "we can fix that." As she read, Mia crawled into Evan's lap. And for the first time since their mother died, Evan let someone else be the protector, just for a little while. But outside the house, engines still waited, because everyone knew Travis Cole wasn't the kind of man who gave up quietly, and storms sometimes come back. The call came on a Thursday evening. Ridge stepped outside to answer it. When he came back in, his face had changed. Not fear, not anger, something tighter. "What is it?" Clara asked. "They're releasing him on bond," Ridge said quietly. "Technical delay in the financial charges." Evan felt the air leave his lungs. "When?" he whispered. "Tomorrow morning." Silence filled the kitchen. Mia banged a spoon on her high-chair tray, unaware of the shift. Ridge crouched in front of Evan again, the same way he had that first night. "Look at me," he said calmly. Evan did. "You are not going back. Not tomorrow. Not ever. But he'll come here," Evan said. "He'll try." "Let him try," a voice said from the doorway. Grave stood there, helmet under his arm. Behind him, engines rumbled, not loud, steady. By midnight, Iron Ridge wasn't just guarding a clubhouse anymore. They were guarding a home. Bikes lined the gravel road like a wall of steel. Headlights cut through the dark. Evan watched from the upstairs window. The sight did something inside him. He wasn't alone. He wasn't the only one standing between Mia and danger anymore. At 3:17 a.m., headlights appeared at the end of the road. A pickup truck. Slow, intentional. It stopped 50 yards from the line of motorcycles. The driver door opened. Travis stepped out. He looked at the bikes, at the men, at the house behind them. For a long moment, nobody moved. Then Ridge stepped forward, just one step. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. Travis stared, measured the numbers, measured the silence, measured the message. And then he got back in his truck, turned around, and drove away. Inside the house, Evan exhaled, not in fear, in relief. The war wasn't over, but the message had been delivered. This child was no longer standing alone in the rain. 2 months later, the courtroom felt different. This time it wasn't chaos, it wasn't shouting, it wasn't threats in parking lots. It was quiet, controlled, final. Federal investigation had uncovered custody manipulation, bribes, and falsified reports. Deputy Cole resigned, the foster system link was severed, and Travis Cole, his bond was revoked after witness intimidation attempts were documented. He stood in cuffs as the judge read the ruling. Parental rights terminated. Permanent custody transferred. Evans squeezed Clara's hand. Mia sat on Ridge's lap, playing with the edge of his patch like it was just another piece of fabric. Outside the courthouse, cameras flashed again. But this time there was no tension, just closure. A reporter asked Ridge one final question. Why did 98 bikers show up for two kids they didn't know? Ridge looked down at Evan, then at Mia, then back at the camera. Because they knocked, he said simply, and we heard them. That night back at the clubhouse, the mood wasn't loud. It was peaceful. Mia took her first unsteady steps across the wooden floor, straight into Graves' arms. The entire room erupted in laughter. Evan stood in the doorway watching. He wasn't scanning exits anymore. He wasn't measuring threats. He was just watching his sister grow. Ridge walked up beside him. "You okay?" he asked. Evan nodded. "Yeah," he said softly. "I think we're home." Outside, the sky was clear. No storm clouds, no lightning, just open road stretching forward. And this time, it didn't feel like something to run from. It felt like something to ride toward. Fall came slowly that year. Leaves turned gold along the gravel road outside Ridge's house, and for the first time since that night in the rain, life began to feel normal. Evan started school again. The first morning, he stood in front of the mirror too long. "What if they ask?" he muttered. "Ask what?" Clara said gently from the doorway. "About him, about the news, about the bikers." Clara stepped closer. "Then you tell them the truth," she said softly, "that people helped you." Evan wasn't sure the truth would sound normal to other kids. 98 bikers forming a wall around your life didn't exactly fit into classroom conversation. But when the school bus pulled up that morning, something unexpected happened. 3 motorcycles idled across the street. Not close, not loud, just there, grave, Boone, copper, not to intimidate, to reassure. Evan saw them through the window. They didn't wave. They just nodded once. He nodded back. At school, whispers followed him down the hallway. A few kids had seen the news clips. One boy stared a little too long at the small scar near Evan's lip. But then something else happened. A girl from his class approached him during lunch. "My dad said those bikers were kind of awesome," she said shyly. "He said they did the same thing for a veteran in our town last year." Evan blinked. "They did." She nodded. "They fix stuff and help people." Evan looked down at his tray. For the first time, he didn't feel embarrassed. He felt proud. That evening, when the bus dropped him off, Ridge was in the driveway fixing a truck. "How was it?" Ridge asked without looking up. Evan shrugged. "Okay." Ridge smiled slightly. "That's good." Mia toddled across the yard with Clara chasing behind her. Her laugh carried through the air like wind chimes. Evan watched her. 2 months ago, he had been running through a storm with her in his arms. Now she was running toward sunlight, and something inside him began to shift. He wasn't just surviving anymore, he was growing. Winter came with early snow. The clubhouse hosted its annual holiday ride, the same one they had been planning the night Evan knocked on the door. Only this year, things felt different. Families lined the sidewalks as motorcycles rolled through town in a slow, steady parade. Toys were strapped to handlebars. Food boxes filled saddlebags. Evan rode with Ridge again. This time, he didn't hold on because he was scared. He held on because he liked the feeling of wind against his jacket. At the community center, children gathered around the bikes. Mia, bundled in a tiny red coat, sat in Graves' lap while he pretended the handlebars were a spaceship. Evan noticed something. The same way people used to look at the bikers with caution, now they looked at them with gratitude. Later that evening, as snow began to fall lightly, Ridge stood near the fire pit outside the clubhouse. Evan walked up beside him. "Can I ask you something?" Evan said. "Sure." "Why didn't you give up on him back then?" Ridge knew who he meant. Travis, years ago before prison. Ridge stared into the fire. "Because sometimes people change," he said quietly, "but sometimes they don't. And if they do, then you protect the ones who need protecting." Evan thought about that. "You could have said no," he said. Ridge looked at him. "When you knocked on that door," Ridge said slowly, "I saw a kid who had more courage than most grown men. Saying no wasn't an option." Snow landed softly on their shoulders. Inside, laughter echoed. Mia clapped her hands at something Grave did, her giggle bright and fearless. Evan felt warmth spread through his chest, not the kind from heaters, the kind that comes from belonging. That night before bed, he stood by the window. No storms, no headlights creeping down the road, just quiet snow. For the first time in years, he didn't sleep with one ear open. Spring returned with green fields and longer days. Nearly a year had passed since the knock. Mia was walking confidently now, saying simple words. Her favorite one was ride. Evan had grown taller, stronger, lighter. Therapy sessions helped untangle the fear he had carried for so long. Clara attended some with him. Ridge waited in the parking lot every time, never rushing, never pushing. One afternoon, Evan found himself back at the clubhouse. The wooden table was the same. The walls were the same, but he wasn't the same. He ran his fingers over the steel door, the one he had knocked on. Ridge stepped beside him. "You remember?" Ridge asked. "Yeah," Evan said softly. "I thought you wouldn't open it." "Ridge, study the door." "Sometimes," he said. "The bravest thing you can do is knock." Evan looked up at him. "And the bravest thing you can do is open it," he replied. Ridge smiled. That evening, as the sun dipped low, the club gathered outside for a group photo, something they rarely did. 98 men stood behind 2 children. Not in front, behind, like a shield. The camera clicked. Mia waved at nothing in particular. Evan stood tall. He wasn't defined by what happened to him anymore. He was defined by what he survived, and by the people who stood when it mattered. Later, as the bikes rolled out for an evening ride, Evan watched the long line disappear down the road. He didn't see leather or patches. He saw promises. He saw protection. He saw the night that changed everything. And he understood something now. Family isn't always who you're born to. Sometimes it's who answers when you knock. If this story touched you, don't scroll away. Subscribe, like, and press the bell icon so you never miss a story about ordinary courage. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from tonight?